The question is, have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?
I believe I have the right to be confronted with any evidence which supports this question. I should like to see what you have.
Suppose you were called to a government panel one day, where you were asked about your political views, accused of disloyalty, and asked to incriminate your friends and associates despite never breaking any laws or being formally charged with one. In the 1950s, when a drive was underway to expose suspected communists in the United States, you could be sent to jail or lose your job if you failed to cooperate.
The Second Red Scare was amidst the Cold War. The intensity of the war in the past several decades spilled into public opinion. As if the people of America weren't already on edge, a certain speech in 1950 invigorated the hysteria. Joseph McCarthy changed America and the world forever, the birth of a term that wouldn't have been given breath without a small Wisconsin senator and the world of hysterical fear.
I think we've got a much more serious situation now in communist infiltration of the CIA. Disturbs me beyond words.
Well, we haven't. The members of the committee have not been advised, and I do think that...
Oh, yes, they have. Oh, yes, they have.
Have we the names and of the people?
I've discussed this matter with the members of the committee.
His career in politics was not always in the limelight, nor as successful. Joseph Raymond McCarthy was known by his colleagues to be a coarse, heavy drinker. He was liked for his conservative preference and critical to Democrats for not being strict enough against communism, but also seemed to be a bad omen, causing havoc wherever he stepped.
In a speech to an organization of Republican women in Wheeling, West Virginia, McCarthy claimed to know 205 communists in the government. McCarthyism was an unfortunate byproduct of the Red Scare, the spread of communism in the world, and the paranoia that followed. It promoted slanderous accusations and baseless investigations. Pointed fingers and black lies fueled the fire, but simultaneously it kept many victims safe from the punishment of being a communist, a tainted reputation, and jail.
The big screen was far from safe from McCarthyism and its dark sphere, as Hollywood had its own blacklist. Said blacklist included none other than Charlie Chaplin. Chaplin was born to a poor family in London and went on to become one of the world's most renowned actors. Eventually, he expanded his career to writing and directing his own films, but his popularity and charisma took a steep decline in the 1940s. His troubles began.
Yes, you, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite.
Chaplin already had a target on his back, but the paranoia of the time made it much bigger. He had been an ambassador for America to Russia in the American Committee for Russian War Relief. This is where he gave an infamous speech. He says in his autobiography,
"I am not a communist. I am a human being, and I think I know the reactions of human beings. The communists are no different from anyone else. Whether they lose an arm or a leg, they suffer as all of us do, and die as all of us die. I don't have to be a communist to know that."
Following that, more news of his involvement in communist organizations arose, and his relations to well-known communists spread. He had been caught donating money for the Defense Club for Dalton Trumbo and the Hollywood tent in 1957, which landed him the name Communist Sympathizer. In the meantime, the FBI created a file on Chaplin that totaled more than 2,000 pages. This is where it states, other sources state Chaplin had been a member, sponsor, or affiliated with several communist groups. He has exhibited a friendly attitude towards Soviet Russia.
This evidence prompted many interrogations by the American press, government officials, and friends. Chaplin had denied being a communist and dubbed himself a peacemonger. The Immigration and Naturalization Service interviewed Chaplin on April 17, 1948, during which he claimed under oath,
I never read a book about communism. I don't know anything about it. I never read Karl Marx or anything like that. My interpretation of communist was Russia.
During his interview with John P. Boyd, he stated,
From what you put here, the communist line, I have followed because of the eventual success of our fight against Germany and against Hitler. Prior to that, I have not followed communist lines. I have been democratic. Naturally, I am progressive, and I am progressive in the sense that I am not a socialist, but I believe in proper people's unionism, and I believe it is a good thing. I believe in all that sorts of things that will alleviate, raise the standard of living of the American people, and that's all. I'd like to avoid another depression.
And in his autobiography, Chaplin admits,
My prodigious sin was, and still is, being a nonconformist. Although I am not a communist, I refuse to fall in line by hating them. This, of course, has offended many.
In 1952, Chaplin was denied a visa when he returned to the country after traveling abroad, because the court decided that Chaplin would need to attest his moral worth in order to enter the U.S. The director-actor cut ties with America and spent the rest of his career working in Europe. Chaplin never returned to the country except to accept an Oscar in 1972.